Howdy, my name is Derek Henry with XLEV8 Consulting. Over the past 20 years or so, I've really stretched Excel to its limits and what it can do, trying to get the most out of it in the shortest amount of time possible. I've written thousands of macros, whether they're for a specific purpose or something I intended to use over and over again, and I've put that into an Excel add-in where you can use a lot of it. Think of it as a no-code approach to do more, right? Now, we're going to walk through in this video what I'm talking about here, give you a few examples to see how much potential there really is. Whether you're somebody who uses Excel a little bit or a lot, whether or not you're in finance and accounting, whether you're a staff level analyst, or whether you're an executive, there's something for everyone that's going to make it a lot less frustrating and a lot more automated. So what do we talk about here? What does this do? Well, one thing that it does is it gives you shortcuts to all kinds of things. One thing you probably haven't thought about is how much time it takes just to use the mouse moving it all around. Well, let's take a look at what I mean by this. When we get into Excel, let's say you want to change the color for something. If you're using the mouse, you got to click these tiny little annoying arrows to do something, and maybe it's several clicks. What if you could set defaults and use keyboard shortcuts? So what I'm talking about, here's one right here. I'm using one shortcut to change through my favorite 5 colors and then back to nothing. Now you can set all those colors to the 5 or so that you really like to use. You can share that with your colleagues. Everybody's on the same page. It's consistent. There's a good example. Or let's say you want to use one that's very similar for the number format. All right. So with another one, you can say 5 of your number formats that you use commonly, and then go back to general. Now, number formats are a pretty common format. There are a lot of what I'm going to call toggles that can do this. You could save your favorites. You can toggle through those very easily without having to use a mouse. Now, another kind of shortcut that's in here is what we're going to call a picker. Now, this particular one is called the sheet picker. This is going to let you navigate faster. It's going to let you do all kinds of cool things, jump around, select sheets. And one of my favorites that I used all the time in workbooks that had a lot of sheets is going to add a table of contents. And you can link it to whatever cell you want in each of the sheets. As you can see right here in this workbook, in a matter of a couple of seconds, it adds a worksheet at the very beginning of the workbook that shows links to everything. So you can hop to anything very quickly, or you can go back and forth. You could even search for sheets by autocomplete. Another example, a lot of people that use Excel use filters, which is a really powerful feature of any software that you might use. Filtering is just such a huge thing to find what you're looking for very quickly. Well, in Excel, there's a lot of ways to use filters, and it just takes several steps to do them. So if you want to filter to a couple of specific values, there's a picker for filters. So you're just going to enter a code. You can even set your shortcut to it. Let's say we want to filter to those specific values. We'd put a T in here, click enter, and then it's going to filter to them. Now we could easily unfilter, just press U and enter. It's going to unfilter everything for us. Now, an even better one, and this is a good example of a lot of ways that you can save that thinking that you do, is to apply a saved filter. It's also going to apply the same column widths and sorts. So if we want to use this one right here, one that I set up earlier today, just press 4, press enter, and it will apply any sorts that you had, any filtering, set the column widths what you want, and use it over and over again. So the idea is to take that stuff that you have to do every single time that can add fatiguing, takes valuable energy, and do it over and over. One last example is with printing, right? Let's say that you have a really ugly looking printout and you've got to make all these adjustments to it, and this is something you do all the time. Well, with this one, we can set margins, orientation, fit pages. We can do all these cool things in one step. And all we have to do is do those steps, save it down, we can use it later, just give it a name. So in this case, I'm going to press 1 for any of the sheets that are selected. It could be 2, it could be 1, it could be hundreds of them. It's going to apply all my favorite settings. And if you're going to print something out, whether it's a PDF or whether it's the actual paper, this is something that will save a tremendous amount of time, especially for those of you that are in retail or restaurants, so you have a lot of departments you oversee or locations. This is the kind of thing that can save quite a bit of time. So if we want to see what the result is, we can run this again, and my default option here for this print picker is P, because why not? I'm going to preview it. And it makes it a lot easier to print out. If we have anything we want to repeat or fit to the right size, it helps with that. So that's the first thing. The second thing, it's going to automate bulk stuff. So if you have a lot of files you need to consolidate or move or copy, you want to create a bunch of folders, you want to take a bunch of sheets and put them together, there are all kinds of things that you can do to automate bulk stuff. Now we're going to look at a couple of examples here. Now just so you don't have to watch me do it, I've already done these and taken a couple of screenshots. So with this one, we're going to create a lot of folders. So you just put in what's the parent path, what folder name do you want. Then like in these, we're going to have kind of nested. So you want to create the parents first. It can create all of these. So if you're creating monthly folders or weekly or something like that, this is a great example of something you can automate. In a matter of seconds, you could have hundreds of folders be created all over your network or your hard drive. Or another example, let's say we want to take a template file. We want to create a whole bunch of copies, one for each store, one for each location, or whatever. This is a very similar result. So we've got our copy file. We're going to create, and here's a whole bunch of different names that we have for locations or something. And it can create those within those folders that you created, maybe with the previous one. It'll copy those folders, rename them to whatever you want very easily and quickly. There are hundreds of examples of things you can do in bulk like that save a lot of time when you have a lot of work to do. Now, another example is just finding things quicker. Okay, so we're going to hop back into Excel, live Excel here. If you want to find particular files, okay, let's say I want to open up a file that I use all the time, one, with a balance sheet or something like that. Okay, so that's something that you could add, you could open up very quickly. You can search by the full path name if you wanted to search just based on the file name itself, not include the path. You could do the same thing. That might make it a little easier if you have a whole bunch of files that have the word in the path. You could do that. How many months do you want to go backwards to? How much, when was it last updated? What's the file size? Just know you're using the right one. And it'll tell you both the entire path and the file name at the bottom. Make sure it's the right file. Now, why is this important? Because version control is one of the biggest issues people suffer from, right? And autocomplete is something that's become very popular. Google kind of started that many years ago, and when you can find something just by offering suggestions, typing a couple letters, y'all, we're lazy, and this is a great way to leverage that laziness to find things very quickly. All right, this saves me a tremendous amount of time. I use this macro almost every single day, and when I can find almost anything in seconds, people are amazed. Why is that? Because McKinsey found the average person spends almost a quarter of their working hours looking for files and other information. This is a great way to do that more quickly. Some other examples. Let's say you have this really long list that you've got, which, by the way, if you press Alt and the down arrow, it'll show you everything in that list. But that could still be a long list. What if we could search through that in the same autocomplete way? Well, you can. Just type a couple of letters. There's what you want. You can enter the value, and it's easier. Or even within the add-in here. What happens when you install this is it creates a ribbon tab, and there's a whole bunch of menus and items in here. It tells you what they are. If there's a shortcut assigned, it'll give you a tooltip when you hover over it. And that's nice and pretty, but it's slow because you're using a mouse. What if you could find one of these macros just by running a shortcut or typing a couple letters? Well, you can do that too. And honestly, the reason I made that is because I forgot where I was putting things. There were just so many things that you could possibly run. So if you wanted to toggle the highlight color, now if you're going to use it all the time, I would set a keyboard shortcut. And that's something you can do in here is set a keyboard shortcut. You can make it a favorite. It'll tell you description. You can even bring macros from your active workbook in here if you've got a bunch of them. It'll let you run them a lot quicker. So a lot of cool ways to find things. Okay, find a lot of things quicker, whether they're commands built in Excel, folders, files, sheets, macros themselves, a lot of things. Now, another thing you can do is integrate with PowerPoint. Now, a lot of people that use Excel also tend to use PowerPoint a lot. I know I have in the last few years, just based on the nature of my role. One of the things I've done in the past is I had to take a deck that had 100, 120 slides in it and update that so that we could use it to control the narrative we wanted to show. Well, that took a lot of time. It took several days just to update all those things and put little things in the right place. This lets you do it automatically. You just say, what is it that you want to use to replace with, and what is it, where should that chart or that object come from? So as an example, this is kind of the before state. There's several different charts we've got for the month of August. And after running this, it'll look just like this. Now you could even have it change a couple of things if you want to, but notice that the date change, this is the after. It refreshes it without you having to do anything. You're just listing all the items that you want to replace and where the replacement should come from. Same position, same formatting, just tell it what you want to replace with it. That saved me a ton of time. I could refresh that deck in about 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how many slides there were. So integrating with PowerPoint, that's huge. A lot of people will literally connect it. What I find is by doing this really automated find replace thing is actually even a little bit better because you don't have to worry about links getting broken. Now, another thing you do with this is integrate with Outlook. How many times have you said, I've got to add a whole bunch of things in my calendar, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of clicking. This helps you import, export, and delete and update in bulk your appointments, your contacts, your tasks. You can even have a list of recurring messages or meetings that you need to set up. And in my favorite, this probably saves me 3 hours a week, is filing emails automatically. Yes, I'm using Excel to do that. Why? Because I can take repetitive logic, have it suggest things, and make it very easy to kind of point to the right thing and get it done. Let's look at a couple examples. So if you wanted to take a whole bunch of appointments, notice I have nothing scheduled in this screenshot here. Okay, so within the macro, when you run it the first time, a lot of these bulk macros, it'll create a sheet that it's looking for. If it doesn't find it, tells you exactly what you need to fill in at the top here. Once you do that, you can use formulas, you can use copy replaced, filtering. That's why Excel is so useful, because you can use references and formulas. So once you fill this in and you run it again, it will literally add those. It'll tell you what the identifier behind the scenes in Outlook is, and you'll have it in Outlook in seconds. Doing those one at a time might take a lot longer. Now, in the same token, you can also delete things in bulk. Just put delete here in brackets, run it again. It'll leverage those appointments. In theory, you've probably exported them before you want to delete or update, right? But if you run it again, it'll delete them and notice that those appointments are gone. That is a lot quicker than doing them one at a time, right? Now, the email one that I just mentioned, see down here at the bottom, it says 93 emails that are in the inbox. Okay, key thing is these are in the inbox, okay? Now, what we can do is set up some default logic, and it's going to suggest things. So based on the sender or the domain or the subject or the recipient or whatever, it's going to say, here's the folder that you indicated you want to put it in. There are a lot of other things you do, like ignore certain folders. Like, let's not even try to use those, or the subfolders. Do we want to append something to the subject that's based on the body? If you get a lot of these repetitive messages from systems or something, you can leverage that, because that subject line is going to be what's used to compare to the folders. And then, do you want to ignore any that are flagged? I use email flags to show things I don't want to follow up on. I wouldn't want to file that because then it might get lost. Okay, so there's a lot of options here that make this work. When you run it, it will export all the emails from your inbox, from whatever inbox you want to pick from it. You might have more than one. It will try to suggest a folder to go to. Okay, it doesn't just file it. That's the problem with inbuilt Outlook rules, is it files it for you, you might miss a lot of it. And here it's suggesting them. Okay, so you can see those right there. The flagged ones, notice those can be ignored if you want, because that might be what you want to do. Now, to change it, remember that we had that drop-down list where we could search. That's really useful here, because it's going to take all of the folders you have in Outlook, and those are going to be in a data validation list that you can easily pick from, or you can use autocomplete to change. So it makes it even easier, and that way it knows it's exactly right, that the spelling's not going to be off, right? So it's got the validation built in. So once you review all these and you run it again, it'll show them green, and any of those green ones, it filed them for you. So if you look at Outlook again, notice it goes down to 5 because we had a new one that we didn't, there was no suggestion it found, and we didn't want to, maybe we wanted to keep that there. Clearly we wanted to keep the red flag ones there. This saves such a big amount of time. If you spend a lot of time kind of keeping your inbox organized, I highly recommend that because it makes things easy to find. Okay, so we saw the integration with Outlook too. Now, what about integrating with Chrome? Anybody's saying, how are you going to integrate with Chrome? Well, there's a lot of stuff we do on the web that's repetitive. Filling out a form, going and downloading the same thing, logging into some application and doing the same stuff day after day, week after week, month after month. Why not let Excel do that for you? It can even pause so that you can put in your password and your login if you don't want to leave that just in some random Excel file. It can skip steps based on logic. So if you have a list of different things and some are not applicable that time, connect those to some inputs. So here's an example we're talking about. When you run this the first time, it will create this run browser steps sheet. You're going to want to fill in different values so you can tell Excel how to control Google. So do you want to launch something? You want to click? Do you want to fill in? Do you want to extract text? So we want to retrieve something. And then how do we know what thing to interact with? So you're just going to list either an identifier. I'm a big fan of using XPath because it's very, very consistent and reliable. There's different ways to see how to do that. Look for the blog on our website to see some examples of how to do it. But once you've filled this in and you run it, it automates it. So in this simple example, it's going in and it's filling in a form. So what does it look like? Well, when you run it, it tells you how long it runs. It's going to pause if you want it to maybe look at something, and before it clicks submit, maybe you want to review it. So it filled in all these forms. It grabbed this little CAPTCHA value here, the 22. That's why you're seeing it right there or right there, right? There are so many examples of things people spend a lot of time doing on the web that you can automate. Let this help you. It's a really light way to do it and reuse it over and over again. So there's another great example. And then lastly, you can integrate with all kinds of things, right? By setting up APIs to your favorite apps. You just have to configure this to either import or export data directly to and from Excel. So an example of that, when you set this up, you're going to configure the things that you want to use. Now, I've set things up with Spotify. I've used Blackline a lot in my past. I've set things up for weather and for exchange rates. And there's a search I did on LinkedIn that I kind of saved. So you're just saying, what are the things that we want to do with it? How do we want this other tab here to look, right? So you can say, what section is it? What menu, what button, and what does it say when you hover over the button? That's what you're filling in here. And then there are other values you just configure, right? So what are we importing? Are we exporting? What URL do we need to point to? There's usually variables. So there's a way to put in those variables or prompt the user. So you configure this and it's always there. And it drives what this looks like up here at the top within the ribbon. This saves a lot of time because normally if you have to export and import manually, there's version control. There's a lot more clicks. There's an error process. When you run this, it gives you a lot of things that help guide you through that. It's going to give you error checking as you go when you're importing data, and when you're exporting it, you get to decide what that looks like. So a lot of examples of things that you can do. Why is this helpful? Why would you use something like this? Well, the first thing is you're going to save a lot of time. In my previous role as a controller at a restaurant company, I used this, and it wasn't even all the stuff that's here, these last couple of points on the previous slide or newer. So I didn't even have those. I saved 10 hours a week because I had a lot of repetitive work that was very homogeneous across a lot of locations and just did it over and over again. The more frequently you do things repetitively, the more time you'll save here. Even if you're not in that kind of a role, there's still a lot of opportunity because you're still doing emails, you're still printing things out, you're still searching, you're still filtering. There's still a lot of things you're doing and you may not even think about it. Now, when you save time, when you automate things, you're also reducing risk of errors or inconsistency. And a lot of times those happen because of fatigue, right? So that's another big thing. Reducing errors, most people would be excited about that. Making things more beautiful. There are a lot of macros built in here that help you make those extra polished formatting things easier, like banding all the rows if you don't have a table, or filtering everything, or applying conditional formatting of all kinds of types, right? There's a lot of things that you can do to make things prettier without a lot more effort, or save that logic that you've done before to make it happen easier. At the end of the day, we're trying to make Excel better, give it more flexibility and connect with things you probably didn't know it could, and do it in an easier way. Like the shortcuts, great example. If there's 5 steps it takes to do something, maybe now you can do it with 1 and save your default to make it even easier. And then lastly, and this might be the most important thing, if you're going to save a lot of time, that's one aspect of it, but what are you going to do with that time, right? If you want to spend more time learning or optimizing, automating things, or collaborating with teammates, developing people on your team, sharing best practices, that's what makes a big difference. When you have the time to then put something in place that's impactful, that people can use to drive improvements and positive behavior, that makes all the difference in the world. So hope you found this helpful. If you want to learn more, please reach out to me or go to our website at XLEV8.co. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.